Guys, Mohammed and the rest of the legal team remain available to you, and anything you need, like, don't hesitate to call. We've really avoided some big grenades in the last year, and we're looking forward to continue supporting the brokerage. Now, with that said, we're gonna go on to the next guest for tonight. Ask Dominic Tompa to come on the stage, and then we're gonna do a conversational type of chat here, and you guys are more than welcome to be involved from the audience as well. So if you have any questions as we're kind of having the conversation, you're more than welcome to speak up. And Dominic's presentation is really critical because of what we're seeing right now in the pre-construction market. A lot of you have questions, and the goal with him and the chat that we're going to have is to really come out and understand and unpack what's happening with the condominium market when it comes to pre-construction, and to see where we're headed down the road.
Great.
Right?
And don't wait till the end to ask your questions. By the time I get to the end of it, you're going to forget. So just ask as we're talking. Someone's having fun out there.
Okay, so everybody knows, I would assume everybody knows Dominic, and I want to give a quick brief introduction here, and then we're going to jump right into it. So, Dominic Tompa is the president and broker of record at the Daniels Realty Corporation. As president and broker of record for the Daniels Realty Corporation, Dominic Tompa leads the in-house brokerage exclusively responsible for selling all of Daniel Corporation's communities. With a career spanning 4 decades, he has been instrumental in making home ownership more accessible while upholding the highest standards of sales and customer service. Dominic became a licensed realtor in 1984. I wasn't born then. Specializing in condominium sales and management in the 1990s. His relationship with Daniels began in 2001 through Danridge Property Management, a company Daniels co-owned. Inspired by Daniels' reputation for quality and integrity, he founded Daniels Realty, formerly City Life Realty, in 2004. He led the successful sales of the Chelsea at NY Towers, the first GTA building entirely sold through a rent-to-own program, an initiative helping renters become homeowners. Beyond sales, Dominic has championed affordable, focused programs like rent-to-own and down payment assistance at communities including Wave, Regent Park, and First Home Markham Shepherd. Under his leadership, Daniels Realty has exclusively represented all Daniels communities since 2013, including landmark projects such as Regent Park and Daniels Waterfront, City of the Arts, where Daniels successfully introduced office condominiums to the market. With deep experience navigating market shifts, Dominic and his team foster a culture of excellence in real estate. A licensed broker and active member of TREB, ORIA, and CREA, he continues to shape the future of real estate at Daniels, helping buyers achieve their dreams of home ownership. Now, with that said, Dominic, could you introduce Daniels Corporation, please?
I will. Thank you, by the way, for letting people know I started selling real estate when we did it on horseback and buggy to get to our appointments. But the interesting thing about it, it's been a great ride. I really love this business. And, what's interesting is as things change, how little things change, how you as agents make money. Yeah, some of the, when I think about when I started, technology was pretty well non-existent, right? MLS, you actually mailed in your listing, and TREB actually went out and took the photo for you, And it'd come out in booklet form, and you'd be waiting, I think it was every Thursday, for the books to come out. That's how you'd show. But what hasn't changed, technology has made the business easier, and what it's also done is grown the geography that you can work. For the longest time, until you had technology, it shrunk the world, right? Like, all of a sudden, selling something in Whitby wasn't out of the question if you lived in Mississauga. When I started in the business, you worked a geographic area that was like, when I started, I was in South Etobicoke. That's really the only area I sold, because in order to know the market, you didn't have technology backing you up. If someone called you and said, I live out here in Meadowvale, can you sell my house for me? That could take me 2 weeks to figure out what their house was worth, because there was nowhere you can just go to easily to look it up. So technology has really made it possible for you to do so much more in volume to make more money. And we're now at, I know we weren't going to talk about this, but we're at that next stage of technology where artificial intelligence is going to do even more for you. It's going to reduce your costs, but it's going to let you do more real estate. So, the bottom line is it's a business about relationships. And it's really important for you to focus on that end of it. If you focus on the relationships, you're always going to do well. Now, Daniels. So Daniels has been around as long as I have. They started actually in 1984. And it was John Daniels, who was the chairman of Cadillac Fairview. Buildings like the Eaton Center, the TD Center. And then when he retired, he said, why not start another company? And Mr. Daniels was in his early 60s, I think, when he started the Daniels Corporation with Mitchell Cohen, who's the CEO of the Daniels Corporation. Now we've built over 40,000 homes over the last 40 years. Winner of the Builder of the Year Award again in 2025. We've had it quite often. We're proud of it, because it really reflects on just what our focus is, which is the quality of construction.
Dominic, what are your biggest takeaways from 2025?
When I think about 2025, I'm going to sound like Dr. Doom here, but the stats are the stats. And Jordan went through a bunch of them, and they reflect a marketplace across the board. What we do at Daniels is, our market real estate is mostly condominiums, and much of it over the last 10 years has been in the high-rise sector of the marketplace. That marketplace has just been, frankly, devastated in terms of market absorption. So you had a year last year where we absorbed 1,600 units. That's the equivalent of zero in our industry. Like, just being honest with you, that is the equivalent of zero. Like, to do 1,600 units, your average year in the industry over the last 20 years has been about 18,000 to 19,000 units. So it's not a sustainable number in terms of being able to sell and build. So again, Jordan talked a little bit about the amount that needs to be sold to build. Mostly to finance, you need about 70% sales in order to reach a number where the bank will say, okay, we'll give you the loan, go ahead and start construction. Anyone who's launched since early 2023 just can't achieve that number. Projects are stalled at 20%, 30% sold. So what does that mean in terms of the future? And this is the positive side of the very bad news that the last couple of years have been in the marketplace, is if you don't get to the 70%, you're not going to get to what the construction start that everyone says we need about 76,000 construction starts a year in Ontario to really meet the demand that's out there. We're not getting anywhere near that. And, we've got a lot of completions right now, and that's kind of what's driving the market in terms of pressure on pricing. So in 2024, we had over 29,000 completions in the market. That was a record year. In 2025, we had another record year of over 29,000 completions. This year, it's coming down about 25%. We're down to around 22,000 completions in 2026. In 2027, it gets down to around 14. In 2028, you've heard it said before, it just falls right off the cliff. It goes from 14 to about 2,000. That's how low it will be. So we're very quickly heading towards a time in the marketplace where right now we keep talking about, oh, there's so much product available and that's putting pressure on pricing. We're about 2 years away from that kind of totally inversing and being in a position where there is no product on the market. Because the thing to keep in mind when you're talking about condominium product, it takes 4 years to build it. If you've you hit your 70%, you're going to start your construction. You take your average 20-odd story building that has 300 plus units. That's a 4-year build, maybe a bit longer.
And that's before that's after the 7 years it takes to get it approved.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But my point is, you're going to reach a time frame from 28, 29, 30, where you'll have virtually near zero completions of high-rise condominium units. And we know that the market is always about supply and demand. If you have no supply and the demand is there, I mean, the demand hasn't stopped. You know, whenever we look at these demographics, you're looking at this understanding of, you know, the province talks about it, the city talks about it. We need to build this many homes every year to meet the demand. So the demand, even as the market has softened, it hasn't gone away. So the question becomes, what's happening with that demand? So it's really being able to match pricing to where the demand is. And that's the challenge in the marketplace today. And a lot of that has been driven by things like costs. It's been driven by government policy. You think about development charges. During the peak of the market, development charges went up about 135% in about a 5-year time period. What else goes up 135% in 5 years? That's all went into the price of homes. And labor costs went up during the same time. Most of the construction industry is union. You're not going to negotiate a lower amount with the unions at this stage. So you've got all of these fixed costs that have just driven up the cost of housing. And the answer to the demand is, sure, developers like us, we're ready to build. We've got the capacity. We've got a pipeline of projects which we're ready to go out with. But we're not going to do it if we can't make a profit. And the challenge right now is for the average high-rise project. You look at any high-rise project and you can't see how there's a profit from building it.
So Dominic, I'm going to go off script here because what you've said is very interesting and it's exactly in line with what we've been understanding. In terms of what Jordan was talking about in the labor side of things, with properties that are being constructed and they're constructed now and hitting the market, there's two things I want to touch on. One is you've got landlords that don't want to buy these units anymore because the landlord tenancy board is driving them nuts. The second part of it is that what used to look attractive, I think now, is changing because the capital that people are spending in condominiums is now more end user rather than investor. Yeah. So the third part of that, actually, there's 3 parts here. Third part of that is, where are all of these construction workers going? Are they going into the industrial side, like he was saying, in terms of construction, or are builders paying them and keeping them on payroll? What does that look like?
Well, I wish we could keep them on payroll, but there's a reality to that, right? So the answer is you've got about 100,000 jobs that are on the line. I think that's a number you probably have seen a number of times in the newspapers, where if the industry doesn't see some changes, that you could have job losses totaling about 100,000. Most of those people, when they go away, right? And it's various places they go to. I mean, they're going to go to other provinces that are building more, where, you know, like we talk about Calgary, which is still in a little bit better of a position in terms of construction, and some of the other places that are still building. So when you lose them, you know, they take their families, they move to another province. They're not coming back to Toronto again just because our market gets a little better. So when the demand comes back in 2028, I think it'll be maybe even late 2027, just looking at the completions, it'll be harder to actually find the talent to build. It was something we were going through in 2018 and 2019 because we were selling so much that there just wasn't enough people. Now it's not. Now the problem will be that they've actually left. So it is going to be a problem in the future.
It's a real problem, then. It's not. I think it's not being drummed up to the extent of the problem that it actually is in that case, because they're probably not coming back, and that's going to be a real challenge. And everyone's going to be fighting for them.
Yeah, I mean, we need the collaboration of the government. One of the things that in our industry we've been asking both federal and provincial government to do, and they've introduced an HST rebate, but just for first-time buyers. And we're really lobbying them to introduce it across the board, which would be fairer for people, because why should you, as not a first-time buyer, pay $100,000 more for the exact same suite as somebody else? It just doesn't make any sense, right? So we hope that they will go along with that, and there's a good chance they will. We need the municipalities on development charges. There's been some movement on them. There's been some that have delayed when you have to pay the development charges. The reality is that's just not enough. We need to get them down. They need to be cut in half. All of these things during some really excessive times, they like government always does, is they're looking at it and seeing it as a revenue source. The only problem is now, when the market has slowed down, it's not really bringing that much money in. They'd be better off reducing those development charges and getting construction going.
Well, 0, 0, 0.
Yeah, exactly. That's
ultimately. And so, with the way condo investments happened historically, and a lot of investors really running to the market, and really we saw it. We saw people booking units, right? It wasn't even like, the goal was to flip it before the actual closing.
That was the word, booking. I've got a pet peeve about that, but I'll let you finish your question.
So, are you seeing any material shift in the builder floor plates now, or is it still investor driven? Are you finding more end users now entering, or is it still investor driven? Are we still going to see micro condos? What does that look like?
So a lot of different questions there to unpack, but they're very good because it really speaks to where the marketplace is today. What we saw when the market went through its peak, and during really COVID was at that peak in 2020, 2021, we saw, and I must say I don't really think it was investor driven at that stage anymore. It was speculator driven, and that's a different animal altogether, right? So there's investors in the real estate market have always been really important part of the marketplace. Investors holding condominium units that then are being rented out is helping to supply the shortage of rentals that we have in the GTA. It's a very good thing. And the thing about investor driven, it needs to be based on buying and holding, right? And that's what a real investor does. An investor buys real estate, creates a portfolio, and it's passive income that they have built up over a period of time. And when you think of the institutional investors that are building purpose-built rentals, that's in effect what they're doing as well, right? What we had happen during the kind of late stages was a very speculative boom in 2020. Started in 2020, went through 21, kind of came to an end in 2022. And those weren't people, they weren't really investors because they had no intention of ever keeping these units and renting them out in a rental portfolio. The only reason they were buying was the idea that it was going to be worth more than what they were paying when they were signing their agreements, and that they would flip them or sell them before they ever had to close. And I can tell you from just our experiences on closings, it's just almost shocking how many of these speculators were out there who were signed up right across the GTA for 10, 11 condominiums and had the ability to close on one or two. So they distorted the marketplace. And they also distorted the floor plan. You talk about layouts and just what does an investor buyer want? What does an end user buyer want? The investor buyer wants the same type of home as an end user because that investor buyer is renting it to someone who's using it as a place to live. The speculator was looking for just the lowest possible price per suite type. So what you saw in terms of suite design in 2020, 2019, 2021 was the size of units in Toronto and the GTA kept getting smaller and smaller. You got to a stage where you had 2-bedroom units that were being marketed at 575 square feet. Have you ever walked through a 2-bedroom that's 575 square feet? It's a lovely walk-in closet, but it's not a 2-bedroom, right? And, you know, and so they were, but what was driving it was not livability, it was purely, I want to say it's a 2-bedroom because when I want to flip it, I'm going to be marketing this 2-bedroom. You know, you had studios that were 250 square feet, which, again, these are just walk-in closets. They're really not livable suites. But the marketplace was driving it. And, you know, if you're, as a developer, your ultimate objective is to sell your product and get to the construction financing so that you can build your building. So it's kind of, regardless of what you thought about the sizing, you were kind of being pushed along by that marketplace because you didn't have a lot of choice. Today, and you're asking me, well, what's that demographic like? I was looking at a stat the other day, and it said that about 45% of the people buying condominiums in 2026 will be first-time buyers. It's remarkable. So almost half of our buyers will be first-time buyers. Do we have investors in the marketplace now? I'd say very little, but I am also starting to see them come out now because prices have actually adjusted downwards enough that for an investor who's looking for a portfolio where they're going to put down 35%, they're going to hang on to this. They're starting to see that the numbers are starting to make sense. If you've got money in the bank, what are you getting on a term deposit around 3% right now? You're getting to a stage where the return is starting to make sense. So you are seeing investors starting to come out. Another interesting thing and a real sign that there are people who recognize that we're at the bottom of the marketplace is that a lot of the bigger players, the institutional investors, are approaching us for bulk sales. And we spend, Linda and I do tours for bulk buyers right now almost every second day. And it's all institutional money that's looking at the Toronto market and thinks that it's really right at the bottom and that there's an opportunity here because they're looking at the same stats we're looking at from a standpoint of what happens in 2028, what happens in 2029. So the good thing for yourselves representing buyers is you have an opportunity to really, you know, again, this takes some education, and this is the important role that you play, is in showing your buyers these types of statistics so they can see that this is actually a really fantastic time to get into the marketplace, hang on to it, but they'll never regret buying at this time. And, you know, we did talk about how long I've been in the industry. When I went through this in the 1990s, much of it is playing out similar to what it did then. And I'd say people who bought right at that bottom around 1993, within 5 or 6 years, they had made a lot of money.
I agree. In terms of trends or signals, what trends or signals did you find the most interesting or unexpected in the previous year?
I think we talked a little bit just about the in-suite design and what people are looking for today. So people aren't looking at a condo just as I want to get my foot in the door. And so that's part of why it takes a little more time that when you're working with them is they want to kind of make everything match up to what their needs are. And what you really have to be looking, what I'm definitely seeing is transportation is huge, right? If anyone who tries to get around the city of Toronto or anywhere across the GTA, it takes up half your life just to go a couple of miles. So having good transportation where you live, absolutely essential. During the last 10 years of the peak of the market, you had condominiums being built, frankly, some of them in the most ridiculous locations that made no sense. Like there's no way to get to them by transportation. There's no amenities around them. You can't do that today. People want amenities, people want transportation, and people want to know that their suite is livable. It doesn't have to be huge. I don't think we're going to all of a sudden have 1 bedrooms that are 1,000 square feet, but they want a reasonable space.
Dominic, in terms of agents and their teams, what should they be paying attention to coming out of last year?
One of the things I think that because of the way the market has adjusted, and you know, people are always reading about how slow it is or prices going down, And we get overly focused on price. And so you're always, you don't want to get caught up just driving, looking for the bottom, right? It's like with any product. You can buy a car and you can buy a Mercedes and you can buy a Honda. Whichever car you drive, don't take this. But you know, if there's a reason why the Mercedes is more expensive than the Honda Civic. And it's the same with housing, right? There's a reason why certain locations sell for more. There's features of some condominiums that are built that, like, you know, I'm so proud of the quality of our construction. That matters. Over the last 10 years, there's so many new developers who'd never built anything in their entire careers, all of a sudden building high-rise condos. You're not getting the quality. So I think as an agent, you really have to sell all of that. It's not that price isn't important. I recognize that, you know, price affordability, it's one of the biggest factors in why people will buy. But there is so much more. And if all you do is focus on price, you're always just going to be chasing that price. So focus on, I think you really have to get to know your client. You have to understand what's driving their reason to purchase. And then you've got to tailor what you're doing to that.
In terms of absorption, where do you see it heading into 2026?
I think the first half of this year is going to be continuing to be challenging. We still have a lot of completions in the first half. We'll probably have maybe 17,000 completions, which is a lot. So you've got all this product still coming on. And the reason why it's also a lot is because a lot of these were bought right at the peak, and they were bought by speculators, people who never really intended to either live in or keep them as investments. So they're going to be continuing to try to sell these down, and so you're going to be competing with a lot of inventory in the first half of this year. As you get into the second half of the year, the completions really do start to drop off, and they drop off even further in 2027. There's a lot of uncertainty, and you know, there was some talk about what happens with tariffs. I'm not sure if I'm quite as confident about the tariff situation, because I don't know if Canada is really in a position where you can say, okay, guys, make a deal. Because it takes two people to make a deal. And if the US isn't interested in making a deal because they're trying to put economic pressure on us, which is what I suspect, we may be in this type of uncertainty for a little bit longer. So we could probably see a 2026 that is still quite challenging in terms of absorption. As we go into 2027 and these completions start to really drop off, that's when you're going to start really seeing the absorption pick up. And even trade deal or no trade deal, there's also a certain amount of time goes by and we will adjust. We'll adjust with, you know, Canada's made new trade deals recently with China. They're talking to Europe. They're talking to South America. We are going to adjust who we're trading with if our partners to the south don't want to trade with us. I think they're going to trade with us, but I think that it's not going to be an easy deal to make with the Canada, US, Mexico trade deal because they may not be interested in doing it right now.
In terms of the broader industry, what do you think that means?
For the broader industry, you know, it's really focusing on the basics. It's going to continue to be a challenging marketplace, although the low-rise market is actually doing fairly well, even in new construction. So it's really two markets. There's the high-rise market and the low-rise market. If you take a look at some of these low-rise launches that have occurred just even the last couple of weeks, their sales offices are really busy. I mean, that part of the marketplace is actually in recovery mode already. So that's really good. I think, you know, I'm not a resale person anymore, but I think the resale market will really start to pick up in the second half of the year. But, you know, I should say, you know, when I was looking at the stats you were showing about your company, I was going to come up here and say, if you're still standing, you did great. But you guys aren't just standing. You guys are rocking it. Like, it's amazing. So you guys are showing that in any kind of marketplace, you can really rise to the top and be exceptional. So congratulations, guys.
Dominic, I wanna fast forward a little bit because we've touched on a lot of the topics as we've been kind of going on. And I think this is a question that's really critical for a lot of the people in this room. where do you see prices heading in 2026?
First half, you're going to, again, I'm going to talk about the condo market because I think in some of the other markets, you probably have already stabilized. The condo market hasn't gotten there yet, like the low-rise market, even in new construction, has stabilized and is not going up yet, but it isn't going down. In the high-rise condo market, first 6 months, you might still see a little bit more softening and then kind of firming up by summertime. And from there on, it'll just be this slow climb up. And you'll wake up in 2028 and you're going to want to show some condos and realize there's nothing to show, and you're going to see prices starting to go up from there.
What do you think about interest rates? Where are they going?
Interest rates is a very interesting spot we're in right now. So everyone's, you hear a lot of people say, oh, the rates are going to stay flat all year. And up until about a month ago, I would have agreed with them. We're in this really awkward position where interest rates could go up or they could go down. And it just depends. A lot of this is going to depend on our neighbors to the south and just how our negotiations with them go. We are in a position where if, let's say, the free trade deal doesn't get negotiated, we're going to be in a position, again, being straightforward about it, we're going to be in a recessionary position if that happens. If that happens, they're going to want to get the economy going. You're going to see interest rates actually go down. But if we do get a free trade agreement, we may actually see interest rates go up. Again, I don't think it's going to up or down in either direction a lot, but it may actually go up. So it's such a it's a real bridge year, I think, when it comes to interest rates. And you might see interest rates go up a little bit. It might go down a little bit. Or, I know this is crazy, but it might also stay flat. It's really hard to predict. Going into the year, I think most people felt they'd just stay flat, but there's reasons to be concerned in both directions.
No. It's very interesting, especially with Trump continuing to add more and more exemptions to his list.
Well,
so we don't know where it's going to
go. You don't know, because whatever he wakes up that day and feels, that's what you're going to be doing. And that uncertainty is the challenge, right? Like, when it comes to interest rates, when it comes to trade, if it's going to be a 10% tariff, great. Let's know it's 10%. We know how to adjust how our economy is going to work with it, and you will start fixing it in a way that you can live with it. I mean, Canada is a very versatile country, and we've got a lot of resources. So it's not that we're helpless, right? We've got so many natural resources. Ontario is the engine of the manufacturing of Canada. So there's a lot that we can do here, but we need some certainty. You can't have a trading partner who's changing their mind on a daily basis. And that's going to kind of drive a lot of just how we react, and then how does that affect interest rates? And that's why I'm saying it's going to be an interesting year. If it turns out that they negotiate the CUSMA deal by the end of summer, beautiful. It's all done. You've got a deal, and now you're going to grow from there. That's the best case scenario for us, because it gives you the certainty of knowing what's going to happen and the way the Bank of Canada and the Canadian government will react. The worst case deal is where it just keeps carrying on, nothing gets really accomplished. They're not really doing a lot of negotiating right now, so they're not really talking. And it may be, again, it's hard to know, but it may be that the U.S. isn't really that interested in making a deal right now.
Yeah, I think the uncertainty is what's killing people, and I'm hearing it's 10 years for that to get renegotiated. So we'll see where things end up. It's going to be very interesting. What do you think, Dominic, are the biggest challenges that are going to face developers into 2026?
It continues to be cost, right? You've got factors on multiple sides that are making it difficult. Prices have come down. Our costs have not come down in relationship to where prices are. So that, quite frankly, as I said earlier, for most high-rise, again, high-rise, low-rise is a different marketplace, but for most high-rise projects, the cost to build doesn't equal what you can sell for. So, for instance, you need to get $1,100 a square foot to sell your high-rise condo and make, say, a 13% profit. and you can get 950. That's a problem, right? So, you know, big developers like us have many projects that are in the pipeline, ready to go, some great communities, but you can't do it until the numbers make sense. And again, that, like I said, when I talk about it, it needs a collaboration of governments, municipal, federal, provincial, to really help out with this. They kind of put their hands into the pockets of the and it's not into the developers, it's into the buyers, right? All of these costs, who's paying for it? Like when they raise the development charges by 135%, it's, you know, it's a flow-through cost. The buyer ends up paying for it. You know, when they put HST on new construction, it's the buyer who pays for it. So, you know, you can't on the one hand be preaching about how you need to have affordable housing, and on the other hand, keep digging deeper into the buyer's pockets. So these things need to happen because on its own, it's going to take a lot longer if that doesn't happen.
Now, Mohammed in his video touched on a lot of things that we should be aware of as agents in terms of the stuff that happened legally from a legal perspective. What do you think that buyers should be most aware of when purchasing new construction today? What's changed?
I think buyers, for the most part, we find that buyers actually come to us fairly educated. And it's really, for you as agents, it's so important to get educated on it before you bring your buyer in. I always suggest, and we always love getting together with groups like this, where we can sit down and talk about what the process is like, what the paperwork is like, and you're talking about it from a legal aspect, right? Understanding what the agreement of purchase is like, what are the responsibilities of the buyer, what are the deadlines, right? You've got carry-on deadlines. It's a different purchase than a resale. So it's very important for agents to be educated on it. And you know, we always love to do it. Every developer is happy to get together with agents and kind of go through these educational sessions so that when you bring a buyer in, you're really able to talk from a position of knowledge. And that makes a huge difference. I mean, the knowledge is the tool that you have to work with your buyer and help them to make a good decision. And the other thing is to always, you know, the process when you're buying new construction, if it hasn't been built yet, it's a 4-year process. Stay with them. Don't stop returning their phone calls because you've already sold them. They're fully sold when they close. So help them all the way along in the process. For buyers, do your homework, right? Look, you know, I always say, find out who you're buying from. Like you can go onto the Terrion website and find out the history of the developer that you're buying from. Do they have Terrion claims against them? Is there a pile of claims against them? Is there a problem with cancellation of projects, right? Like this year, for instance, there was 28 project cancellations. That's pretty substantial. In fact, there was more project cancellations than there were launches, which sounds absurd, but there was 10 launches and 28 cancellations. Daniels has never canceled a project. We've built everything we've ever sold. Check to see, is the developer that you're planning on buying from, have they canceled the project? Your client's going to look at you as if you did that when their deposit money sits in the developer's hands for 3 years, and then the project gets canceled. So, you know, do that research, and the information's available out there. Not every builder is the same. Not every developer is a builder. So that's another thing that a lot of real estate agents and clients don't understand, is that most of them are developers. They're selling it. They develop a project, but then they hire a general contractor to actually build it. There's only a handful of developer builders like ourselves who you're dealing with a Daniels employee from the moment you walk into a sales office until you move into your new home, which is built by Daniels employees. So we're a construction company and we're a developer.
Now, Dominic, a lot of the agents in this room, we're all looking forward to that HST, you know, being removed. And I think it was going through Senate this week. Do you think that this is going to have an impact on sales?
If it just stays with first-time buyers, yes, it'll have an impact. Again, if you look at that stat that I mentioned, 45% of the potential buyers in 2026 are first-time buyers. So it will have an impact on them. I think it'll have a tremendous impact if they agree to take it across the board. And Build has been really working with the government and lobbying to get that done. And there seems to be at least some interest in having discussions on doing just that. Again, this is not a deal, so don't go out and suggest that, but they're at least listening. And if they do manage to get it across the board, it's a game changer. I mean, you're talking about the ability to save approximately $130,000 on a $1 million purchase. So imagine if you're a resale listing that's listed at $999, all of a sudden you can pick it up for $860. That's a game changer. So it will make a huge difference in the volume of homes we sell.
And I know there's got to be someone in this room thinking, how are some builders already offering this if it hasn't really been finalized? How have they been offering it? Or what are they doing in the contract to make this work? Any idea?
Yes and no. I mean, everyone's doing different things. The answer is they can't. You can't offer what isn't there, right? And it's been unfortunate because going through the election, because the Conservatives had put it into their election platform, the Liberals decided to do the same. They made the announcements and then slow walked it through the House. So it's been a year since the announcement. There is no mechanism yet. Now they have said that you will be able to go back to those dates, 27th from this past year. So in theory, you'll be able to go back and collect it, but there isn't a mechanism in place now. So if as Daniels, if I was to say, okay, on this, we're going to do this, I have no way to really to do it. And if something changes in it, how can you agree to something legally that isn't really in place? So I've had a lot of discussions with our lawyers about, can we put something into our agreements to account for that? And they're so reluctant to do it. So most of the developers who are advertising this, really all they're doing is just taking it off the purchase price.
Now, with many investors currently on the sidelines, how do agents explain to clients this can still be a good time to buy?
Yeah, it is. I'm not saying it because I'm a developer, but it really is a good time to buy. I mean, you take a look at where pricing is. It's now below our cost. So if you think about any kind of product, we're talking about housing here, but whether you were talking about cars or clothing or anything else, if you are selling it below your cost, you cannot do that for a long period of time, right? Everyone knows that. So at some stage, when you're selling below cost, you've got to start raising your prices. Otherwise, you'll stop creating the product that you're doing. That's where we are right now with new construction and condominiums. We're selling below our costs. So if you're an investor, you must recognize that as an opportunity, about a once-in-a-generational opportunity to buy at a lowest price you can possibly buy at. It doesn't mean you can buy it and you're going to flip it in 6 months. I'm not suggesting that. But if you buy it today and hang on to it for 5 years, I am very certain you're going to be very happy you did that. And when you talk about investors and you talk about carrying costs, because we're talking about the cash flow. People want to make sure that if they're not cash flow positive, if they're cash flow negative, that it's very small. As prices have adjusted downwards, there's a lot of great condominiums available today that are actually cash flow positive, or if they're negative, it's just a very small amount.
Now, Dominic, last couple of questions here. From a developer's perspective, what are you looking for from a buyer's agent beyond simply introducing the client? Agents will walk in and they'll have their nice coffee and tea that you guys are supplying, and then they'll say, we'll see you in a minute. How can an agent better prepare even before walking into a new home sales office?
Thank you for that question, because this is something that I think is really important. And if you want to be successful on the new home side of the business, and there's a lot of money to be made in the new home side of the business, it's about taking the time to learn about it. So As I mentioned earlier, we're always thrilled to get together with groups like yours and talk about what we do, how we do it, give you the type of knowledge about the agreements of purchase and sale and what this process will play like, what the construction timelines are like, so that when you're talking to your client, they're going to know you know what you're doing. Because that's really important. Your client needs to have confidence in you. Because when you're suggesting for them to buy, they really want you to know that you know why you're telling them they should buy, and you understand that this is a good purchase for them. So that's an important start, so that the first time you walk in with your client, you're not walking in and you don't know anything more than the client. And the client's kind of sitting there thinking, well, what are you bringing to the table? Why are you helping? You're not really helping me, right? So you've got to have something you're bringing to the table, and what you're bringing to the table is your knowledge of the market overall, and then knowledge of the new construction industry. And don't get intimidated by it. If you've never sold new construction, come on in. Our team is friendly. They're going to help you out, and you will be knowledgeable when your client comes in. And from there, the other important thing is stay with that client. Too many people, when they're selling new construction, because we do have our own sales teams, will almost kind of do like a handoff, right? It's like, here, and then that buyer seems to only be dealing directly with us. Not that we don't want to help that buyer, but it's really important for you to maintain that relationship, because that relationship should continue to be with you. And if you want them to come back to you, refer people to you, you've got to build a relationship with them. So as they go through their financing, make sure you're working closely with them. When they're going through their 10-day rescission period and they're going to bring it to the lawyers to review it, make sure you're holding their hand through that, because it's a very nerve-wracking time for a buyer. So make sure you're always there for them. Make sure that they know that when they have a question, they're going to turn to you and you're going to help them with the answer. And then finally, through the entire process, for the next few years, if you're waiting for it to be built, don't lose touch with them. Let them know what the timelines are. Stay in touch with the sales office to understand how's construction proceeding. Like, we'll often do we'll do construction tours for agents just so you can walk through our buildings before the suites are completed, and you can share pictures with your clients. You can talk to your clients about how things are going, and they really appreciate when they know you are there to hold their hand right until the end.
Last question. With the exception of you doing this for over 40 years, what gives you confidence? I mean, you've seen it all. So what gives you confidence about the future of real estate in GTA, despite everything we're hearing?
We live in the engine of this country. The country depends on the GTA. It's the kind of the center of finance. The GTA is the center of manufacturing. Northern Ontario, major mineral sources. So how Ontario goes, Canada goes. That's not to put down any of the other provinces, but it is a reality. So there's so many positives to the GTA that, sure, markets adjust. They've adjusted over time through the time periods that I've been in real estate. There's been 5 or 6 cycles, 2 really deeper ones and then some minor ones. But all the time, if you bought and held, you always did well. And there was always these opportunities where during these types of adjustments, where if you bought, you did extremely well. And I always say that it's not easy, but if you're a contrarian, you've got the opportunity to do well when others are sitting on the sidelines. When everyone else is afraid and they're saying, oh, look at the uncertainty, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, that's the time to jump in and take advantage of everyone else being afraid to do something. We're in that market right now, and I think it's going to last for another 6 to 9 months, where you'll really be able to get the absolute bottom of a market. If you wait till after that, you're going to be buying as the market slowly starts to go up.
Thank you, Dominic. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Paul.
Hi. So any incentives for like real estate agents as buyers?
Any incentives as real estate agents as buyers? Well, we still pay you the commission. And it's better than resale, so that's the other thing. Our commissions are anywhere from 3 to 4%, as opposed to, what are you getting, 2.5 now on resale?
Yeah, 2.5 is right.
So there you go. And the incentives, like, I'll just talk about what Daniels has right now. We haven't started, we're a perfect example of what we're talking about in completions and then in no new construction starts. So last year, in 2025, we had about 1,900 completions, so represented almost 10% of the market of the GTA. This year, we've got about 1,000, so it's coming down. Next year, we don't have any. So because we're not going to start, again, we're not going to start new construction on something that is not going to sell for a price that supports the cost of construction. Now we're doing, and Jordan was talking about purpose-built rental. We've got construction starts in the last couple of years on purpose-built rental buildings. We built the U of T residence that just completed last year as well. So we kind of diversify. We do more than just condominiums. But in terms of condominiums, we now have across the GTA communities like in Erin Mills, where we have KIF and Kindred condominiums at Erin Mills and Eglinton, Casod right at Square One with our partners at Oxford, Daniels on Parliament and Regent Park. All of these buildings are either completed or very near completion, where, to be honest, we've got inventory we want to get rid of. We're offering pricing that, as I said, is below our cost. So yes, you'll make commission plus get an incredible buy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, sir.
All right. Thank you so much, Dominic.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to be here.